Hi, I'm Dusty Moore, and welcome to the workshop today on iCEV and Google Classroom integration. Today, I'll be walking you through all the different features of our Google Classroom integration. We released this integration last year, and the last year's features consisted of being able to post assignments, as well as the grade transfer to the classroom gradebook. This year, we've added several new features to that integration based off of teacher feedback, including the ability to schedule posts, posting to multiple classrooms from one screen, as well as an audit log that you can look at to make sure that you can see everything that's been posted to a particular classroom, as well as what's been submitted and turned in from your students. Before we get started walking through this integration, I wanted to point you to this one resource, which is our integration guide. You can see the website address down here. It's www.icevonline.com/integrations. I'm going to go ahead and click on this link and take me to the page. And you'll see this is the page where we list all of our different integrations and have the integration guides. So if you'll scroll down, you'll notice here we've got the iCEV Google Classroom integration. This is important because as we add new features to this integration, you can always rely on this resource to be here to walk you through all the new features, as well as to provide tutorials, tips, tricks, and hints. In fact, everything I'm going to cover in today's workshop, we've got listed right here, as well as several different screenshots, GIFs, and things like that to walk you through everything in regards to that Google Classroom integration. So again, icevonline.com/integrations. So let's go ahead and just jump right on in to how the integration works. The first thing is if you've already set up your iCEV account, one thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to connect that account to your Google Classroom account. So if I go into my profile here in the top right-hand corner, here I've got my email address set up. What I want to do is I want to make sure that that email address is the same email that's tied to my Google Classroom account. You're going to have to do that, you and your students, in order to make sure that that connection actually works. So now let's look at the next step, which is actually going to be going through the process of tying your Google Classroom account to iCEV. So the first thing is, if I look at this lesson, Formulas for Career Success, Career Testing and Investigation, and you'll notice beside each asset, so here by the videos, the instructional materials, and the interactive assignments, you have the Share with Classroom button. The first time you go to click this Share Video PowerPoint with Classroom, you're going to go through a very important step, and that step is going to be to connect your iCEV account with that Google Classroom account. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my account. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and put in my password. And then this next step is very important. The next step is going to ask you a series of questions regarding whether you give CEV permission to access your Google Classroom. If you deny any of these permissions, then the connection's not going to work. So you're going to go through and you're going to allow each of these permissions. And if you have questions regarding security, privacy, data, most school districts, we have the privacy and the data contracts already agreed upon and signed. But if you do have questions about that, ask an administrator to make sure we've got the proper paperwork filled out in order for you to accept these permissions. So once I've gone through and allowed all of those permissions, I'm going to go ahead and click one last final allow. And then now basically I have connected my iCEV account to my Google Classroom account. And so it takes a minute here for the window to pop up. But once that window pops up, you're going to see all the different options that you now have to assign this resource to your Google Classroom account. So let's stay on this window right now and kind of discuss, everything related to posting an asset to Google Classroom. So first of all, I clicked the video, or in this case, the PowerPoint, and I'm going to share this one to my Google Classroom. And as it opens up this window, it's going to have a few different things on it. First thing that I want to point out is it's going to tell you this is the resource that you're about to share. So we give you the name, or we give you the lesson name as well as the asset name that you're about to share. The second thing is we provide you what time it is in Central Time. And this is the same if you're in Eastern Time Zone or Pacific Time Zone. We always provide that Central Time Zone location because everything that you post at this point is based off of Central Time. So we give you that time so that way you understand and you know what time it is in that Central Time Zone. We are working to make it to where it will reflect your browser's time zone and make it a little bit easier for you to post things in your own time zone. But for right now, what we do is we do everything in Central Time. And then that way you can, we give you that time so that way you can go back and adjust, your postings to make sure it fits that time zone. Next up, we look at the title. So you can see right here, you've got your formulas for career success, career testing and investigation. That's the lesson name. And then next up, we have that asset name. You can customize this and change this title. So for me, I don't like it to have both the lesson name as well as the lesson asset name. In this case, they're the exact same name. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to say, I'm going to call this the formulas for career success, career testing and investigation PowerPoint. Okay, now that I've connected iCEV to my Google Classroom account, this next part is where you're actually going to be able to show which iCEV course you're taking the asset from and to which Google Classroom class you're actually putting it into. So in my iCEV, I've got two classes set up. I've got my first period career preparation 1 class, and I've got my second period career preparation 1 class. In Google Classroom, I've got my first period career preparation 1 class, as well as my second period career preparation 1 class. This is really important because you're going to be able to view your rosters in iCEV as well as in Google Classroom. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to share, for instance, your first period in iCEV to your second period in Google Classroom, because then what happens is you'll get mixed rosters when you go into iCEV. So for instance, if you accidentally shared first period into second period, when you go into manage your roster in iCEV, you're going to see some of your second period students in that first period class because it's giving them that registration code to get into that first period class on iCEV. So I always recommend basically matching it up and trying to name your iCEV courses the same as your Google Classroom courses. Just makes it easier as you're sharing different assignments. So here I'm going to share this from my first period career prep 1 class to my first period career prep 1 class in Google Classroom. And next up, I've got the ability to turn in different feature or different schedules, such as the due date and the available date. And this is something we didn't have in our original integration, but based off of the feedback of teachers, we added it quickly. So first of all, I'm going to put in a due date. So today is, let's see here, today is July 8th. So what I want to do is I want to make this assignment due next week. So I'm going to choose July 16th. And then I'm going to say it is due by, let's go ahead and put 5 o'clock p.m. Again, you'll see Central Time. You're going to want to adjust this based off of your time zone. So if I wanted it to actually be 6 p.m. Eastern Time, then 5 p.m. Central Time is going to match up to that. Next up, I've got the ability to schedule my post. Again, this is something that was new that we've added based off the feedback of teachers. When we actually started this integration, we had it to where whenever you click the post button, it just automatically posted it to your Google Classroom. Now, based off of what teachers told us, we wanted the ability to schedule it so it popped up for your students when you want them to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and choose what my availability date is. So if today's the 8th, I want to make it available on Monday. And let's go ahead and choose 8 o'clock a.m. Central Time. Let's go ahead and put that. So now this assignment is going to show up for students in Google Classroom at 8 a.m. Central Time. Next up, I can add my instructions. So here I can type, let's see here, review the following PowerPoint. Keep in mind the following topics while reviewing. Then I can add my topics there. So you can put in as many instructions here as you want for your students. So now that we've got this all set up, I've got a couple of options. I can go ahead and click the share button, but since I do have 2 classes that I want to share this to, then I'm going to go ahead and click this button down here to share it with another Google class. And it's going to open up a box just like what we saw previously. And so this time I'm going to go from my second period Career Prep 1 class, and it tells me that the Google Classroom class it's already selected. So basically it's telling me I've already sent this to that first period Career Prep class. So now I'm going to send it to my second period Career Prep class. And let's go ahead and keep those parameters the same. So we're going to say July 16th at 5:00 p.m. Central Time. Let's go down and select that. And then the availability date is going to be July 12th. And we're going to choose 8:00 a.m. Central Time. All right. And now for the instructions, I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this. So let's copy that, paste it. And then after I've got that completed, now I've got all my parameters set. I'm ready to go ahead and share. I just go ahead and click the share button. And after I click that share button, it's going to go ahead and churn. And then you'll see that we've got the successful, that assignment has been shared to Google Classroom successfully. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK to exit. Let's do one more. Let's do an assessment, because you're going to see that the assessments follow the exact same flow. The PDFs or the instructional materials follow that same flow as well. But let's just go ahead and look at an assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this assessment 1. And real quickly, we're going to go ahead and just put in our due dates. And so I'm going to make this one the 16th as well at 5:00 p.m. And then available on the 12th at 8:00 a.m. And then let's go ahead and share it with another class. And we're going to go second period to second period. And we're going to keep those same parameters in here. So we're going to make that at 5:00 p.m. All right, so I've got that ready. I go ahead and click share. I didn't put any instructions in this time, but go ahead and click that share button, and then you're going to see, okay, that assignment has been shared to Google Classroom successfully. Okay, now let's take a look at what the student sees whenever they try to access content through iCEV, from iCEV through Google Classroom. So I created a couple of quick posts. I didn't put any availability date or due date on these. I just went ahead and posted them so I could give you a quick demonstration. But as I'm logged in here as the student, it says here that here's the teacher that posted a new assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then right down here, you'll see where you can sign in and go ahead and access. Now, keep in mind, I haven't done it for this particular profile yet, because I'm wanting to walk you through from A to Z what the students will see the first time they actually go through and complete this process. So here they have the link. So Exploring Careers, Hospitality and Tourism. And I'm going to go ahead and click this link, and it's going to basically take me to my page where I can register for this course. So you can see right here, it says your Google email is not registered with my iCEV. Basically what this is saying is that we're not recognizing this email address. And so what we need for you to do is we need for you as the student to register on iCEV in order to access this. So I'm going to go ahead, and you can see right here that there's a link. So you can click here, the student's going to click here, and it's going to take them to this iCEV registration page. You'll notice that it already puts in the registration code from iCEV. It puts in their first and last name, their email address. Next up, they're going to put in their username. So I'm just going to go ahead and use this email address for that username. A quick password. I forgot password question. And then go ahead and click submit. Now, one thing about this username and password, as long as students are using those Google credentials and as long as they're coming in through Google Classroom, they're never going to have to use an iCEV username and password. This is just if they cannot access through Google Classroom to put that information in. But if they are going directly from Google Classroom and clicking those links, which we always recommend, they don't ever have to use that iCEV username and password. So I've got all of that filled out. I'm going to go ahead and click the submit button. And now I have access to this Exploring Careers Hospitality and Tourism lesson. Now, once you go through this one time with your students for that class, you're never going to have to do it again. So, and I'll show you that in the next post. So let's look over here. I'm going to X out of that. I'm going to go back to my first period Career Prep 1 class. And now I'm going to go ahead and click on this assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and click there. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose the link. And now that I've connected those accounts, I've registered for the class, it's going to take me directly to that asset that my teacher wants me to see. So it's really simple to go through and get your students registered for iCEV. And once you do that very first time, then they're ready to go and they've got access to all the content that you're going to share to that classroom for the rest of the semester, for the rest of the year. As we look at the grade transfer feature from iCEV to Google Classroom, there's a couple of important points to remember. The first is only the most recent score will pass into the Google Classroom gradebook. On iCEV, you have the opportunity to set different thresholds for how many times a student might take an interactive assignment. And in iCEV, each one of those grades are recorded. However, in Google Classroom, they only allow us to pass the most recent grade into that grade book. So keep in mind, if you give your students multiple chances on an interactive assignment that is graded, that only the most recent grade is going to be in the Google Classroom grade book. You can see all the grades in the iCEV grade book. Another thing to remember is that assignments must be shared to Google Classroom for the grade to pass to the Google Classroom grade book. What I mean by that is if you do not share an assignment to Google Classroom, but instead have your students log directly into iCEV, that grade is not going to pass back into the grade book. So please keep in mind that in order for that grade to show up in the grade book, you need to share that assignment to Google Classroom. Another couple of things to remember would be not to copy Google Classrooms. So Google has a feature where you can copy the classroom and paste it for another class. And if you do copy those classrooms, what ends up happening is the links are broken and it makes it difficult for students to access those links. So don't use the copy Google Classroom feature. You should also avoid using the Google Classroom reuse the post feature. So Google has this feature where you can click reuse post and it'll take that post and put it in a different Google class. What that does is, again, there's funny coding behind it all, but it just remembers what class that it was shared from. And so therefore, if you click that reuse post feature, your students are going to have trouble accessing that iCEV content. That's why we built some of the tools and features that I showed previously in the workshop to help you to where you don't have to utilize that feature within Google Classroom. And then lastly, verify that you have access to student emails within Classroom. There are some districts that have it set up where the student email is not passed through to Classroom. And if that is not happening, then you're going to have difficulties accessing the iCEV content through Classroom. So this workshop was meant to give you an overview of the Google Classroom integration. Please keep in mind to go to icevonline.com/integrations because there's a lot more features, there's a lot more tips and tricks and a lot more tutorials on how to utilize iCEV with Google Classroom. If you spend 10 minutes reviewing that page and looking at all the different screenshots, you're guaranteed to have much more success with that integration. Thank you for joining this session today. You will be automatically awarded your digital certificate for attending the session. And I hope you will join us for the live Q&A right now following this workshop.